One of the main things that you guys are here for today is to talk about these trails, right? The renovation, the reconstruction, the building, that kind of thing. So just give us just like a brief overview of kind of, a summary of what's going on.
Let me start this off with why do you have two fish people here talking to you about trails,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, good point. Good question.
And there's two answers to that. The first is a lot of these trails provide access to high mountain lakes or high elevation streams that have fish in them, and it's important for us to maintain that access to those mountain lake fisheries. The other reason is that part of my responsibilities on the Salmon Chalice include managing the trails program on the Lost River Ranger District. So the national forests are comprised of smaller geographical areas that are referred to as ranger districts, and so I manage the trail program on the Lost River Ranger District, which is the Big and Little Lost River basins, and that's why we're here. That's why you're talking to do fish people. One, the trails provide access to these mountain lake fisheries, and that's part of our job, is to make sure the public is able to get to those on the trails. And then I, in addition to being a fish biologist, oversee the trails program.
With that, thank you for that that extra info. Appreciate it. So yeah, give us an overview of this project that's going on with the trails.
Like what Bart was saying, the benefit of having maintained trails offers people access to their public lands.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've been on trails before where
Yeah.
you've had unexpected obstacles, whether it was a fallen tree, a big rock,
Yeah.
or overgrown where you can't even see the trail, or if you're in a rock pile area and there's no definitive trail. That can be frustrating. You're planning a trip and you realize, wait, where am I supposed to get to? And that's where trail maintenance comes into play. One project I want to highlight on is the Cane Lake Trail. And that's one of our more popular trails on the Lost River Ranger District. Cane Lake Trail is a out and back trail that goes to a high mountain lake, Cane Lake, and it is a beautiful, beautiful trail. You start out in this densely wooded area, and then you make your way up to the lake that has a bunch of waterfalls along the rock faces that feed into Cane Lake itself. Now, because it starts in this heavily wooded area, we get a lot of downed trees that will occur over the winter, and it requires routine maintenance. So every summer that I've worked here, we have gone up with a crew and gone up to remove those fallen trees, whether it's through chainsaws or hand saws, like the small silky saw style, to be able to create better access for the trail. So that's one of the projects, and it's been extremely rewarding to be able to go up to these beautiful areas and to be able to provide access to the lake for people to go enjoy. So it's been a really fun experience to go up there, but even more rewarding to be able to help provide access.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense.
Like Ashton said, Cane Lake is one of our most popular trails on the district that we work on, and so we put a lot of effort into maintaining that trail. But there's a bigger effort there too. Is it also includes maintaining the road into it, so maintaining the trailhead. And then, like Ashton said, working on this trail, that particular trail has a lot of stuff that can go wrong with it.
Yeah.
Like the trees tipping over, right?
Yeah.
So you can step over or around, walk around one tree, but if you let that go too long, you'll have hundreds of trees on the trail, and that makes the access really, really difficult. Another thing is there's some wooden bridges on that trail, and we have some challenges with them too. If a big tree falls over on one of them or an avalanche hits one of them, that can cause some problems there too. And then the tread itself, which is the ground that you walk on, the path, what we refer to as a tread, that can have issues with it too. And if you don't regularly maintain these trails like the Cane Lake Trail, eventually it'll be very, very difficult for people to even use the trail.
Yeah. And do you guys find that there are uh, obstacles like this, like trees falling down, that kind of thing happening pretty often to these trails? Like, how much of a need is that?
That's a good question. It depends on the trail. Like what Bart said and what I said, Cane Lake is one of those that's in a densely wooded area for a big section of the trail early on. So it's more prone to having accrual of these fallen trees. There are other trails, the Lower Cedar Creek Trail, and that one is not too far from the town of Mackay itself. So it's
Mm.
fairly easy to access in regards to traveling there, but it follows along Lower Cedar Creek and experiences a lot of erosion and sloughing. And so that's a different component of trail maintenance where we have to make sure that the trail is still there after the winter months. So we'll go in and assess to see where is the sloughing or erosion occurring and build the trail back up so that the trail's usable.
Yeah.
One of the worst things that can happen for us is you have single trees that tip over. And long as you're there every year, it's usually not too big of a deal,
Mhm. Just don't let it build up.
yeah. But what can happen is a snow avalanche can occur in the wintertime, and it can start at the top of the mountain and come down the side of the mountain and pick up hundreds of trees and then dump them on your trail. And they can be, maybe 10 feet high and involve in a single avalanche hundreds of trees being dumped on the trail. And those create a bigger challenge for us in when we have those kind of events that occur to get that cared for.
Yeah. It usually requires a good amount of effort and a large crew to help on those bigger lifts to remove those trees off the trail.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about that. So, when you guys are doing this maintenance on these trails, right? What would you guys say the range is for, how many crew members does it usually take to do these maintenances? Like, for, like, the smallest projects to the biggest ones, and then, how long does it usually take? What's the ranges there for amount of people and time?
So for if we're using Cane Lake as an example, we've had it where we had one or two people go to scope out the trail
Mm.
before. With Cane Lake, since we know that it's probably going to have trees on the trail,
Yeah.
we've put crews of like 3 to 5, 6 people that go up there and a little hike up to work on getting the trees removed. I think in last year, so 2025, we had 6, I think, but it wasn't just one crew going up just one time. So over the summer, there will be trails that we know maybe we got all of the trail done, but we had a windstorm occur, and we know we should probably go check Cane Lake and see if there's more trees on the trail.
Yeah.
So a trail sometimes will experience maintenance more than one time in the
Mm.
summer.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have some trails like the Iron Bog Lake Trail that we can send 2 people and they may not do anything other than just walk the trail, but we don't know till we walk it,
Yeah.
right?
And those are the nice days, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
we've gotta go check it, but oftentimes that trail, there's nothing that needs done because that trail is more in a sagebrush kinda dominated area, very few trees along it. We do sometimes have some drainage issues with it. That's one of the things you have to also think about with trails is water on the trail, and if it flows down the trail, it can erode it and eventually cause some pretty significant damage to the trail. So we think about drainage too. But yeah, 2 people on that trail usually can have that whole thing done in a day and we're good for a year. But then, like Ashton said, we got these other places that are a bit more problematic. When we're doing new trail construction, like or for example, right now we're working on a trail system that goes through the central part of the Lost River Range, trying to significantly improve that. Uh, when in sections of those trails that we've had to reroute a trail, put it in a different location. So we're building a brand new section of trail. We'll take maybe 15 people in to work on that. Those are very labor intensive, you know, efforts to construct new trail at elevations, that are between 9 and 10,500 feet. That
Wow.
takes a lot of work. So
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. What would you guys say are the most maybe popular trails among this area? For if there are students that are wondering where they can go, what trails they can go to, what sites they can see using these trails. Which ones would you guys recommend most for them in this area?
Well, I've already listed Cane Lake.
Yeah.
That is one of our most popular
Mm.
because not only does it have beautiful views, but I feel like it offers a moderate uh, hiking experience. Um, how far would you say that is from
it's about
Atamaki?
4 out of Mackey. It's probably an hour drive to the trailhead from Mackey. So maybe 40 miles from Mackey, roughly.
Yeah.
About an hour drive from Mackey.
Mm-hmm.
So from Rexburg, it'd be roughly 3.5 hours from
Mm.
here
Okay.
to the Cane Lake Trailhead.
Yeah.
Um, and Lower Cedar Creek Trail, that one it doesn't take long, maybe 20-30 minutes from Mackey
Oh.
to drive on a rocky, bumpy dirt road to get to the
Yeah.
trailhead. But that one's a fairly short hike.
Yeah.
It's an out and back, and it has a really beautiful waterfall, multiple waterfalls actually,
Oh wow.
and moderate to easy hike intensity. And one of my personal favorites because you are walking along this trail and have the creek flowing by you, and you have these steep, rugged mountain faces on
Mhm.
either side of the canyon as you're walking through there.
Yeah.
So those are two of my favorite. Bart, do you have any that you would recommend?
So we try to maintain or provide. We try to
Yeah.
provide a diversity of access opportunities
Mm. Yeah.
from everything from very short trails that are most people could hike on, like the Green Lake Trail. It's only a third of a mile long, and
Oh, not bad.
and yeah, and to then we have much more difficult uh, trails that are many miles long.
Mm.
One of my favorites is the trail that goes from Fall Creek up through Surprise Valley and down into Broad Canyon and into Copper Basin. My daughter and I did that hike over a 3-day period back in 2013, just before she came to school here.
Oh wow.
She wanted to go to Surprise Valley, and so we did that trip, and it was so cool. 3-day trip. You could hike that trail in a day if it'd be a long day,
Yeah.
but we did it in 3 days. What an awesome trip! That we topped out at about 10,000 or about 11,000 feet, where the trail crosses from Surprise Valley into Broad Canyon. Just was
Wow.
so cool. The fish caught, lots of fish.
That's cool.
Had a great time. That's one of my favorites. Let's see. So back to Cane Lake.
Yeah.
I actually first went to Cane Lake in 1985. And so
Wow.
I would have been, let's see, I would have been 12 or 13 years old when we did that.
Mm.
And what an incredible trip, as Ashton said.
Mm.
That's one of the most beautiful places, in my opinion, on earth.
Wow.
Is the as Ashton said, you start in a heavily forested area, you end up at a high mountain lake. There's incredible wildflowers, waterfalls, so beautiful. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. They sound like some pretty good recommendations for spring and summertime that's coming up, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And if you're
definitely.
looking for something shorter and easier, Iron Bog Lake is a
Mm.
great one. That's about a mile and a half and
Oh
not a
yeah.
super difficult hike. A lot of young kids, families, older people make that hike and
Mhm.
are able to do it. My dad hiked in there when he was in his 70s,
Wow.
and so that's another really cool one. Uh, a different type of trail is our motorized trails. So far
Yeah.
we've been talking more about non-motorized trails, but we also
Mm.
have motorized trail opportunities
Yeah.
as well. Lake Creek in Copper Basin is one of those. In fact, I am not aware of anywhere else in the state of Idaho that provides the opportunities that Lake Creek Trail provides. It's open to motorized vehicles with a width less 50 inches or less. Um, and it loops past 7 mountain lakes
Wow.
that are around an elevation of 10,000 feet, 5 of which have fish in them, and it's
Wow.
just the scenery there's just spectacular. So that's another kind of trail, that we have is the motorized trails too.
Yeah.
So
I will say that although these trails and recreational opportunities are 2 hours or 2 and plus hours away,
Mhm.
the drive out there, you pass through the Snake River Plain,
Mm.
flat sagebrush area, but then you have these vistas of these mountains as you're driving
Mhm.
to these locations. And that's also been a really fun perk of driving to go maintain these trails is I have these beautiful mountains that I get to
Oh, yeah.
admire as we're making our way out to go to work. And so for people who are willing to put in the drive, the drive is also rewarding
Yeah.
in and of itself.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's awesome. Yeah, and I wanna thank you guys too just for all this work that you guys put on kind of behind the scenes because I think a lot of people, that enjoy these outdoor, spectacles, these outdoor places, these lakes, these trails. I think a lot of people don't realize how much work goes on behind the scenes, which is kind of what you guys are providing by, grooming them, by keeping them up, by maintaining them.
yeah, I think that's a really good point. And as an outdoors person, I sometimes forget that, how much
Yeah,
work went into actually doing
but
this.
now you guys are the ones doing it.
Yes.
Even though I'm the one doing it, sometimes when I'm out there just hiking, I kind of
Yeah.
fail to appreciate that. But there will be times that maybe on 100 feet of trail, depending on where it is and what the issues are, that we might spend a day
Mhm.
with a crew of 10 people working on 100 feet of trail, and it takes you like 10 seconds to walk across it, right? Or 20 seconds, and you
Yeah.
just pass through it, and
Yeah, you're like,
and
"Man, you
and
don't know what went into this."
yeah,
Anything else that, maybe we missed, that I might have forgotten about that you guys would, just wanna add or anything like that?
there's a message that our agency wants us to deliver
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, sweet.
Trails are an incredibly important part
Mhm.
of the national forests. And it provides people an opportunity to experience their national forests. But as we've talked about today, they require regular
Oh,
maintenance
yeah.
in order for them to be functional and for the public to be able to use them. And one of the things that the agency is doing right now is our chief, who is Tom Schultz, has made recreation a priority for our agency, and this includes trails, and doing the work that we need to do on those to make them as functional as possible for the American public to use.
The Forest Service is working hard to modernize trails, campgrounds, and their facilities, as well as improve the roads and recreation sites. And the goal of the Forest Service is simple. They want to provide more access, better service, and a visitor experience that reflects the pride that we take in stewarding our forests. And as part of the Forest Service,
Mhm.
it's a rewarding experience to be able to be a part of that.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing that. I really appreciate you guys being here and driving all this way for it.
Yeah,
Oh,
of
you're
course.
very welcome. Thank you so much for having us. It's awesome to be able to talk about what we do.